I do.
Okay.
I want your attention. Okay, our speaker today is Rachel Fox.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Can you see me? Hi. I know you're from the I'm going to speak about Rodney Reed. I spoke about Rodney Reed in August of last year. And at that time, I had to read my notes. Can everybody hear me? I'm going to
You
project.
can move in closer now.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Like the Walking Dead here.
Yeah. So I'm going to just speak. I may need to go to my notes a little bit, but I know a lot about this case because it haunts me every day. Rodney Reed was dating well, there was a woman in Bastrop, Texas, who was white. Her fiance was a white policeman in Bastrop, Texas. She was having an affair with Rodney Reed, who is black. In that part of Texas, there is a tremendous amount, or at least in the 90s, there was a tremendous amount of prejudice against mixed race couples, or white and black couples.
I'm sorry, is this 1890s, 1990s?
1990s.
Okay, thank
In
you.
1996, this happened.
Wow. Okay, thank
So I'm going to go to my notes for just because dates are important, but I'm sorry about that. So in the fall of 1995, Stacy, we're not going to get into last names because it'll be confusing, but Stacy was engaged to Jimmy. Stacy is the white woman. Jimmy is the white police officer. And Rodney is the black person with whom she's having an affair. On April 23rd, 1996, she was found murdered. She was strangled with her own belt. She lived with Jimmy. Jimmy's truck was found nearby with evidence of the murder inside. Okay, he was the primary suspect. It was known that he was angry because he felt that his fiancée was having an affair. For a long time, he was the primary suspect. And this case right now it's always been about DNA evidence, and now it's going to the Supreme Court over the issue of DNA evidence and when it's going to be allowed in a case. They found three intact sperm inside of Stacy's dead body. And it was the testimony, the prosecution had testimony that sperm can only live 24 hours. So the theory was, since they pegged her date to be a particular time, that they knew that she was with Jimmy, and that Jimmy was still in whatever, that she left to go to work at 3 a.m. They believed that her murder happened in the last that she had had sex in the last 24 hours. Later, the people who testified to that effect took that back, disavowed that testimony, because it can live up to 3 days. I mean, there's all sorts of statistics about outside and orifices, but anyway, it can live up to 3 days. And in fact, Rodney had sex with her on the 21st. She was murdered sometime between, it's assumed between 3 and 8 a.m. on the 23rd. All right, I should read my notes because I want to stay in order here. 1 year after her body was found, they figured out that the sperm was Rodney Reed. Rodney Reed's DNA was on file there for a charge of which he was acquitted. But they matched his sperm to that which was inside Stacy, and a year after the murder, they went after Rodney. Rodney was out of state. It's been proven by various forensic experts that it's virtually impossible that he committed this crime. He's been trying since a lot of evidence has come out. Everybody has recanted. Jimmy the policeman has gone to prison for 10 years for raping in his role as a policeman, he raped a woman in his custody. And he went to prison for 10 years, and he was known to be a violent rapist. By the way, when Jimmy was presumed to be the murderer, it was just murder. When Rodney was presumed to be the murderer, it was rape and murder. And the assumption was that he stopped her as she was going to work at 3 in the morning and raped her and killed her and left her by the side of the road. Other little details: that she was killed with a belt. This man once said to his fellow police trainees that if he were to kill a girlfriend or a wife, he would do it with a belt because there would be less evidence. And she was killed with her belt. Okay, so in 1998, he was tried and convicted by an all-white jury in Bastrop, Texas. And as I made a point last year, there's like a Confederate sculpture outside this courthouse in Bastrop, Texas. So I've managed to screw this up. All right. Initially, when Rodney was questioned, he did not admit to the affair because of the local prejudice. Later, when he realized how serious it was, he said, well, yeah, we were having an affair. No one came forward before or during his initial trial to say that they knew of this affair. Later, lots of people with no connection to Rodney but connections to Stacy came forward and said, we know that she was having an affair with a black guy and that she was afraid that her fiance was going to find out. Also, in prison, he confessed to this Aryan guy, member of the Aryan whatevers, that he killed her, and that he thought the Aryan guy would appreciate it because he killed her for having an affair with a black man. And also, at her funeral, someone heard him say to her often, "You got what you deserved." Like he whispered this, and someone, "You got what you deserved." Jimmy, the white fiance, said this to her in a whisper, but someone heard it. I mean, there's just evidence all over the place that he did it and never did it. There is nothing tying Rodney to this crime except the 3 sperm. Now, the question in 2014, he started requesting that the DNA evidence, the belt and her clothing, or that this evidence be tested for DNA. It was never tested for DNA. I mean, the belt is the murder weapon, and it was never tested. So he lost in 2014. He appealed and lost. He appealed, they sent it back to the trial court. The trial court went the same way. He's wending his way through the judicial system. And generally, I don't know if there are any lawyers here, I am not a civil procedural lawyer, but I did go to law school. You have to exhaust all of your state remedies before you go to federal court. The issue that is going to the Supreme Court is there's a 2-year statute of limitations to sue over DNA evidence. And the question is, when does the statute start running? The circuit courts, which are the federal courts of appeal just before the Supreme Court, are split. The Fifth Circuit, which covers Texas, says that you have to take it to federal court and say that the state is violating due process by non-testing for DNA. You have to do that the minute the trial court says, we're denying this request. But you're expected to go through, you know, if you're going to appeal, you do it in the state court system. And it sends you back to the trial court and you appeal again. And when you've exhausted all of your remedies, typically in this country, you can then go to federal court. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that when the trial court first denies it, you should then go to federal court because you still have a case in the state court. You would have one going in the state and one going in the federal. So the 5th and 7th Circuit say that's when it starts to run, and the 11th Circuit, the 11th Circuit is like Florida and Georgia. Anyway, one court says it starts when you've exhausted your state remedies, and that's when the 2 years starts to run, and there's no question that it was within that 2-year period. So the question for this, so just to understand, this man they have done everything imaginable to say you did it and this other guy didn't, and it's clear that this Jimmy is a bad guy. Now that all they have to do, only once, is test the DNA to prove it's not me, and they just start doing backflips to, they're doing backflips to prevent the DNA from being tested. So the Supreme Court has taken this case to conference 8 times, and Justice Sotomayor has said, you understand the consequences of us not hearing this, or that an innocent man may die. And finally, on the 8th try, they've agreed to hear it. So the question is, when does the statute of limitations begin to run? And, you know, to someone who doesn't really understand the legal system, that sounds really petty. Like, just let the man have his DNA, the evidence, the murder evidence tested. I just, every time there's an appeal in this case, I think, oh, he's gonna win. Now, they have stayed his execution indefinitely. That much is good, but they haven't, but it could be, he could be put back in line. This morning I looked up some statistics. Black and African American people make up 13.2% of the general population in Texas. On death row, Black and African American people represent 46% of the population. And that's relevant for, particularly this case, it just screams racism all over the place. And I guess that is where we are. I don't know exactly when the Supreme Court, I guess the next session. I don't know when we expect, I have to look that up, when we expect to know the result of that. But there haven't been oral arguments. They have reviewed the writ, and the case has been made that the Supreme Court has to decide, does the statute run at this time or does it run at that time? One would hope that the result, although this court is really bad, one would hope that the result is the one that allows to prevent an innocent person from being executed. Let's go with the longest, the latest date from which that 2 years can run. I just hope that this court that was 1/3 appointed by Donald Trump, that they go the right way. Justice Alito just, that the 5th Circuit where this happened is, well, anyway, I'm not gonna get into too much of the legal stuff. I think I'm finished. I read from notes normally, but